Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this, the 9th Ordinary Meeting for 2025. I want to commence by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land upon which we meet, the Butchla people, and pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. We'll open in prayer. Let us pray together, each of us according to our individual beliefs. Grant to this council wisdom, understanding, and sincerity of purpose for the good governance of the community. There are no apologies, we're all here. Disclosures of interest. Are there any disclosures of interest? If you think one during the council meeting, speak up. Item 4.1, condolence motion, the late Peter Olds, OAM. I think everyone here remembers fondly Peter, who sadly passed away earlier this month. Peter was somebody very, very special, somebody who really touched the lives of people who came into contact with him. And I think when I've spoken to people about Peter over the last week or so, what's really touched me is that everybody has their own unique memories of him, their own unique understanding of Peter, and that is because he was so thoughtful about other people. He remembered people, he remembered, their interests, their thoughts and interests, so everyone's interaction with him was extremely special, and he left a very lasting impression. He was somebody who made you feel special, someone whose deep knowledge, constant curiosity, and generosity really shone through in everything he did. And I think we can see in him what it means to be a life well lived, a full and active life of sharing, inventing, helping, caring, fixing, building, observing, learning, reminiscing, and remembering. He was writing books, solving problems, and always contemplating. He understood metal, timber, engineering, and physics, but always with these fields of science with an understanding and a purpose of how they could help people, how he could be of service to people in the public. And he really understood people. He connected us. He could talk about everything and anyone. I treasure the memories of my conversations with him at City Hall, in Town Hall Green, at his Ferry Street home, over the phone, and elsewhere. We would talk about people he hadn't seen in 7 decades, like Cecil Lowther at Walker's Engineering, and would talk about my son, how he had seen him on the Marianne that weekend. He was somebody who remembered people to smile and remembered his interactions with them. And I think the children of Maryborough and adults like myself, we ride joyfully the Melsa train, the Melsa miniature train, which came to him through his memories of his own father's miniature train, and they're riding it during the Great Depression. He took that train, his father and the family, including Peter, around the shows in the Great Depression, and that's how they made a living. And decades later, Peter and the Melsa team built those trains, which now feature so strongly in Queen's Park. And he understood what they meant to children in the Great Depression and what they mean to children now, but also he understood what it meant to the men and women who are part of Melsa, to have something shared to focus on, to have that little railway to bond over, to fix, to mend, to repair, and to promote, and what it meant to build relationships from father to son and citizen to citizen. And one of the most quintessential activities and icons we have from Maryborough itself, the Marianne, he built from a couple of old photographs. He understood the history of Maryborough and the importance of it to our future. He understood how people could connect with our rail heritage and every other aspect of our region's heritage. He valued quality, enduring quality in everything, the same care that he put into the carriage for the royal family, the same care that he put into trains, he put into the waste bins for the citizens of Maryborough. His ingenuity shined through in inventions like the static screw Olds elevator. He built things to be used by people, and he built them to last. Whether it was a pope falling asleep in the Vatican, whether it was a child riding the Melsa or the Marianne train, whether it was King Charles III riding to his coronation in his horse-drawn carriage, or a Maryborough citizen relaxing in Queen's Park on an old bench. Those items came to fruition through his ingenuity, his activity, his constant curiosity. He turned ideas into physical form, ambition into reality, and plans into action. He used his talents and his genius in the service of other people. And I think we can all be really thankful for what Peter Olds did for our community. We can be thankful for his presence in our community, what he's done, and his legacy. And he leaves a lasting legacy. I think what Olds means to Maryborough, it's like the time cannon that he cast. It's like the Marianne, it's like the Melsa. But the remembrance of Peter Olds is something so much more, something really profound about living a life of kindness and decency and always being of service to people. So I will always fondly remember Peter Olds for what he was as a citizen, as a friend, and as somebody who loved our city and wanted nothing but the best for everyone. So I'll always think fondly of him. Thank you. Dennis?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to shadow what your thoughts are there and what you actually said yesterday, and the service that was held at the Brolga Theatre was a great memory of Peter. Peter was very loving of hoop pines, and the little train that Mary Ann was used to bring hoop pine out of the forestry, and Peter told me the story, but at the same time he gave me a little plant about that high in a pot that he'd actually grown from a seed, and he just loved giving people hoop pines. Whenever you'd see him, he'd ask, how's that hoop pine tree going? And at the moment it's around about probably 8 metres high, and it's really starting to mature. And I was thinking yesterday I'll put a plaque on that, never to be removed.
Yeah.
Yep.
Michelle?
Yeah, thank you. It's obviously with deep sadness that we acknowledge the passing of Mr. Olds, but he was such a valued member of our community, and he was such a dedicated man, and I think he was always willing to lend a hand, but he was, in my view, one of the truest gentlemen that I've ever met. He's just deep knowledge and genuine love for people in our community will never be repeated. I can't see that happening. On a personal note, he worked alongside many of my family members with the reproduction of the brass Mahino bell, but also at the Melsa trains, and our family has always felt very, very fondly of his commitment to the community. He'll be dearly missed, but his legacy will live forever in our citizen. Like you pointed out, George, every time we sit on a bench, every footpath that we walk on, every park and every public space has a little piece of Mr. Olds there somewhere. And I often laugh that I knew both Mr. Olds and his wife Jan, but Jan was always Jan, but Mr. Olds is always Mr. Olds. And I don't know why, but it was always that he was always Mr. Olds and Jan. And for the life of me, I could never figure out why. And I was actually smiling about it the other day, but the title of Mr. Olds, I think, is something that just commanded respect from within our community, and he'll be very, very sadly missed, but always fondly remembered.
Any further speakers? I'll put the motion and then we'll stand for a minute's silence. That the Fraser Coast Regional Council acknowledges the immense contribution to our community by the late Peter Olds OAM and offers its condolences to his family and friends. All in favour? That's carried unanimously. I will now stand for a moment's silence. Thank you. Item 5.1 is confirmation of the minutes from August. Is there a mover that they be confirmed? Councillor Cosgrove, seconded Councillor Govers. Any speakers or questions? I'll put the motion. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 6.1, the open resolutions register, pages 29 to 39. Is there a mover for this? Councillor Fraser, seconded Councillor Chapman. Any speakers or questions? Put the motion. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 7.1, community presentations. CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There was only one speaker this morning at community presentations. That was Mr. Bruce Noble, and he spoke in relation to council-owned land in Barhamtown which he'd like to see developed for low-income earners and first home buyers. That's my verbal report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I'll move that council note the verbal report. Is there a seconder? Councillor Cosgrove. I'll put the motion. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Petitions, are there any petitions? Item 10.1, informal meetings, records of matters discussed, pages 40 to 61. Is there a mover for this? Councillor Phil Truscott, seconded Councillor Farage. Any speakers or questions? I'll put the motion. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 10.2, Fraser Coast Regional Council Audit and Risk Committee meeting minutes, pages 62 to 69. Is there a mover for this? Councillor Byrne, seconded Councillor Whelan. Any speakers or questions? I'll put the motion. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 10.3, the Environment and Sustainability meeting minutes, pages 70 to 77. Is there a mover? Councillor O'Keefe. Is there a seconder? Councillor Farage. Any speakers or questions? I'll put the motion. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 10.4, the Water and Waste Services meeting minutes, pages 78 to 83. Is there a mover for this? Councillor Byrne. Seconded Councillor Farage. Any speakers or questions? I'll put the motion. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 10.5, the Traffic Advisory Committee meeting minutes for August, pages 84 to 92. Councillor Chapman, you're moving this?
Yes.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Cosgrove, any speakers or questions?
Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to thank these for this group of people that come together and just do awareness that for councillors, any matters to be discussed about hooning, speeding or any issues like that, forward for the next meeting. It's the next meeting is actually written in the minutes there. I think it's on the 4th of November. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
4th of November it is.
I'll put the motion. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 11.1.1, councillor meeting attendance for October. Is there a mover for this? Councillor Farage, is there a seconder? Councillor Govers? Yeah. Any speakers or questions? I'll put the motion. All in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All opposed? 3. That's carried 8-3. Item 11.2.1, the 24-25 report of the Audit and Risk Committee, pages 95 to 101. Are we bringing the internal audit? We're bringing Jake in, the committee chair. Good morning, Jake. How are you?
Good morning, Mayor Seymour. How are you?
Good, thanks. Did you want to speak to this?
Yes, Mayor and Councillors, on behalf of the Audit and Risk Committee, I am pleased to present the committee's 24-25 annual report. Over the past year, the committee have fulfilled its legislative responsibilities, continuing to strengthen Council's governance, risk management and internal control frameworks. I'd like to thank the full Council for their active participation in the recent risk appetite workshop, which was held in May. This collective effort demonstrated for me a shared commitment to transparent decision making, and it's directly strengthened Council's ability to align its strategic risks with the community priorities. Council's ongoing commitment to the long-term financial plan should also be commended. By maintaining its focus on its financial sustainability, Council's ensuring that future generations will benefit from this stable approach by providing resilient service delivery despite the challenges that are facing the local government sector. Look, on behalf of the committee, if you'll indulge me, I'd also like to acknowledge and thank Ken, the CEO, on his imminent retirement. His leadership and steady guidance has played a critical role for me as part of the Audit Risk Committee and as chair, and it's embedded sound governance practices and positioning this organisation for continued success. I also want to extend my thanks to my committee members, Mr. Stephen Coates, Ms. Mel Jacobs and Councillor Whelan and Councillor Byrne for their constructive contributions, along with the Council officers, the QAO for their valued support in strengthening our oversight. So accordingly, I commend the 24-25 Audit and Risk Committee annual report to Council as a demonstration of our collective commitment to good governance, financial stewardship and accountability. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there a mover for this? Councillor Whelan, seconded Councillor Byrne. Any speakers or questions? Questions of Jake or anything? Yeah, Councillor Byrne.
I'd just like to speak on behalf of all of my involvement within the committee. I'd just like to congratulate the whole team. There's an immense amount of work that goes in behind that happens on the back end of this report, and it is phenomenal. And I probably didn't realise just exactly how much work it imparts onto our staff and to our team and to the committee until I actually sat on the committee. So I just think that it's important to note and commend the amount of the staff, the amount of work that they do on this. So I just thought that important to bring up today.
Any further speakers or questions? I'll put the motion. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Thanks, Jake.
Thanks.
The next item is 11.2.2, the amended policy risk management and risk appetite statement, pages 102 to 121. Is there a mover for this? Councillor Byrne. Is there a seconder? Councillor Farage. Any speakers or questions?
Only what I said before, an immense amount of work goes into these reports, and it's clearly audit and risk, or the risk appetite statement for our organisation. It's a really, really important part of our organisation, and I just think that to have the safety and internal management of this as a priority is really, really important for our whole organisation. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further speakers or questions? I'll put the motion. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 11.2.3, the delegations register update. Is there a mover for this? Councillor Farage, seconded Councillor O'Keefe. Any speakers or questions? Can I just ask, perhaps about the changes to the Aged Care Act, the Commonwealth legislation? How does that impact on us in terms of at 5.1 of the report?
Sorry, Mr Mayor, I'd have to take that on notice unless the acting director is aware.
Okay.
Would you like to take that on notice?
No, I'm comfortable with it. I'm just interested in how a Commonwealth aged care legislation impacts on the council's delegation register.
Probably, so where legislation relates to local government, regardless of whether we do or don't, we provide those delegations within the register. I would expect that aged care may be relevant with respect to the units that we have in Granville in particular, but I will ascertain that detail and provide it to you.
Yep. Any further speakers or questions? I'll put the motion. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 11.2.4, request for new leases, pages 446 to 451. Is there a mover for this? Yeah. Councillor Phil Truscott, second Councillor Paul Truscott. Any speakers or questions? Motion. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 11.2.5, repeal financial hardship policies, pages 452 to 460. Is there a mover for this? Councillor Govers. Is there a seconder? Councillor Whelan. Any speakers or questions? With the motion, all in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 11.3.1, the Fraser Coast Local Heritage Register, proposed entry for Scarness Band Rotunda, pages 461 to 502. Is there a mover? Councillor Farage. Is there a seconder? Councillor Chapman. Any speakers or questions? Councillor O'Keefe.
Oh yeah, Mr Mayor, thank you. I'll be speaking against this motion to council to enter the Rotunda on a local heritage register. Whilst I was very supportive of the recent completed renovations of the Rotunda to address the condition and reflect some elements of its earlier style, my position has always been that council should be investing in public spaces and should remain focused on the renewal of those public spaces to accommodate for the wants and needs of the community now and into the future. Council, it is my view that the land is forever and that council should be able to modify, move or replace furniture when required. So whilst I'm supportive of the renovations, I will not be supporting the rotunda being put on the local heritage register.
Any further speakers? Councillor Chapman?
Mr. Mayor, I'd actually will be voting for this motion today. If you have a look at page 466, it shows that with the old pier and the location of the rotunda, this rotunda has been shifted a few times, and I've actually was involved in it with the council as from shifting it to the new location where it is. I actually watched the construction and the workmanship that our staff have actually put into this rotunda to renew it, and I was very impressed with it. And this was a gathering place where people used to go with brass bands, people could busk and different things back in the early days for entertainment. And I'd really like to see something like this be cherished, be grown. It's part of our history of the Fraser Coast. It's a part of Scarness, and I'd really like to see families getting back into these parks and doing things that don't cost all that much money, but let's enjoy ourselves. And with having this asset sitting there and we can cherish, I think it's the first step in the big puzzle we've got, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Cosgrove?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a question for the Acting Director, Community Strategy and Development, and that is, will the listing of the rotunda on the local heritage register create impediments to modifying the structure in future to change the fully enclosed boarded sides to a slatted design that are more in line with SEPTED principles, SEPTED being crime prevention through environmental design?
Thank you, Councillor Cosgrove, and through the Chair. Council actually has legislated exemptions for building works. So if Council wanted to amend to slatted balustrades due to safety or antisocial behaviour, there is no issues with the listing on the local heritage register. We're able to do that. The building is, if it is listed on the local heritage register, local government is actually the assessing authority. So we have the authority to assess it. We can manage these safety risks, and we will be looking at that over time and analysing that. But we would still, if we did change and amend to balustrades, we would still document works and ensure they align with heritage conservation principles.
Thank you. So essentially, when the assessment is being made as to what works are done, if this is placed on the local heritage register, the primary consideration will be heritage value rather than SEPTED. Is that right?
Yes, it is based on heritage value, but if we do see a trend in, as we said, safety or antisocial behaviour, there's nothing to preclude us from amending those works to slatted balustrades to ensure that there is a more open environment should we be concerned about it. But we would always consult with a heritage consultant to make sure that we are any changes that we make are sympathetic to the heritage listing. But there's nothing that precludes us from doing it for safety reasons.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll speak in favour. First of all, I just want to make the point that the decision to be made today is in accordance with our policy and with the legislation about whether or not this place, this heritage place, meets the criteria set down in the Heritage Act and in our policy in terms of the criterias. That is the decision we need to make, and any arguments for or against should be about whether it meets that criteria, if it is to be a legal and valid and proper decision. I'll go through the different criteria under which it has been recommended. Criteria A, criteria B, criteria D, and criteria G. It only has to meet one criteria threshold to be on the local heritage register. My view is that it thoroughly satisfies at least those four criteria. Criteria A is the place is important in demonstrating the evolution or pattern of the region's history. This would have to be one of the few surviving pre-World War II tourism infrastructure, built infrastructure on the Harvey Bay foreshore. It represents Harvey Bay's early growth and development, its identity as a tourism destination on rail and through motor for people to come here and spend time, as well as locals. It represents something built by the community for people to enjoy being on the foreshore at Scarness. And in that way, it certainly represents a very important aspect of the evolution or pattern of the region's history. Criteria B, the place demonstrates rare, uncommon, or endangered aspects of the region's cultural heritage. If you look at old photographs of the foreshore, there was a lot of tourism infrastructure built in terms of changing sheds and swimming enclosures, and this building. This is the building that survives from 1920s tourism. I don't think there's anything else. I'm sure there's not anything else. This is the building that survives from that aspect of Scarness and the broader Harvey Bay tourism. So it is certainly rare, uncommon, and endangered. Category D, the place is important in demonstrating the principal characteristics of a particular class of cultural places important to the region. As you will see in the report, which thoroughly and completely recommends listing on the local heritage register, this has been a vital community piece of infrastructure for generations and from next year for a century. It has been extremely important as a particular class of cultural place, as a gathering place, whether it is for bands, picnics, family outings, railway picnics, and other organized activities. Category G is the place has a strong or special association with a particular community or cultural group for social, cultural, or spiritual reasons important to the region. This has a very close relationship, particularly to the community of Scarness, to the tourism businesses there, to the holiday makers and the locals. I believe in all aspects it is unquestionable that this meets the threshold for local heritage inclusion. It is actually quite remarkable that it's not on the register already. It is something that demonstrates a quintessential Harvey Bay experience. It has been moved around in the past, and this listing would not prevent it being moved again. Listing on the local heritage register does not freeze something in place, as you will see, for example, across the road in what was Haddo's Dance Hall, which received approval after consideration for demolition. So simply listing it on the local heritage register, particularly the local heritage register, does not prevent future community use in a different way. It is about respecting the history of this building, which has lasted for a century, and ensuring that those heritage considerations are taken into consideration in the future management of this land. Thank you. Councillor Phil Truscott.
So, a couple of questions. I totally agree with most of what the Mayor has said as a to the Director. You mentioned about, because I'm always against, well, when I say against, listing anything as heritage because it costs the ratepayers a lot of money, usually, unless it's the town hall or something, absolutely wouldn't touch it. Does it cost a lot of money to get, you said every time you want to do something you have to get a consultant and pay a consultant? Is that?
Yeah, thank you for your question. I might tackle this in a couple of ways. To do this initial work that we've undertaken to list it on the local heritage register and ensure it's complying with those requirements costs approximately $6,000. So we've done that work now. We've got the consultant report and the amendments to and the renovations to and the upgrades to that rotunda are now complete. I would estimate that it's minimal cost to actually, if we felt that it was necessary to amend any part of that rotunda, either due to safety reasons or damage, etc., there would be minimal investment required to liaise with a heritage consultant to ensure that we are meeting the standards of the register.
For example, a good example is the Seafront Oval. I think it's almost place card number 1 or something. Yeah. I don't think we would have ever spent any money on heritage assessment despite using Seafront Oval all the time.
So, the three-part question. The second question is, I think you've already answered. Can the council repair it? The answer is yes, like you said, without asking anybody.
That's correct, yeah.
can the council get rid of it?
It's in the policy, I can answer that. You just have to go to the policy, which is, we mentioned at the start of this about inclusion, which again is the basis upon which we should be making a decision. I think the policy actually is for inclusion or demolition of, there's a policy about how to obtain approval, and as I said, we did that during my time on council and your time on council. We did that with Haddo's Dance Hall and with the old shipyards at the end of Wharf Street.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, councillor.
Yeah, Councillor Farage?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I just wanted to echo your sentiments and speak in favour of listing this on the Heritage Register. I think as we are such a quickly evolving community, it's important to remember in some way, shape or form where we started and where we've come from. And I think this quaint Scarness band stage is a nice way to do that. I know a lot of people that have gone there. I myself and Councillor Govers checked it out a few weeks ago, and it actually sheltered us quite well from the rain when we were to attend the scooter and wheelchair convoy recently. And I think it is a really important part, and it's important because you can stand back and think about what once was Hervey Bay and what now is Hervey Bay, and capturing that history, I think personally, is really important. And as keeping it there now, we are writing a history that one day people will look back at and see that we did list this and we did look after it, and hopefully it will remain for many, many years to come. Thank you.
Any further speakers or questions? Okay, I'll put the motion, Councillor Farage, you technically have a right of reply. I'll put the motion, move Councillor Farage, seconded Councillor Chapman. All in favour? All opposed? That's carried 10-1. Item 11.3.2, proposed changes to dog regulations on beaches and foreshores. Public consultation outcome report, pages 503 to 589. Is there a mover? Councillor O'Keefe, you're moving this. Is there a seconder? Councillor Farage. Any speakers or questions? Councillor Cosgrove.
Thank you, Mr Chair. I'll be speaking in favour of this motion with some trepidation. I think I just want to, on the record, I actually think that we are banning dogs from a hell of a lot of the beach, a huge stretch, but noting that a lot of that is already prohibited anyway, so it's not actually a huge change. And I really struggled with this. I considered putting an alternate motion forward, which actually was just what went to engagement. Because I actually think, and I read the engagement report in detail, you could make a justification based on the data that 58% of people actually supported what went to engagement. Now there's some finer points there that said they rejected Amendment 2, but nonetheless I actually think broadly people were supportive of actually what went out to engagement, and now we've done the process and run the numbers and justified what is in the recommendation. And I can see how that is supported as well. I just don't think it's definitive that the engagement equals exactly the answer we've got. I'm a dog owner myself, and the thing that got me across the line to be supporting the officer's recommendation as it stands is actually what I would say is the peanut butter sandwich test, which is peanut butter sandwiches get banned from schools because one kid's deathly allergic to them, right? And the problem is that if you allow some dog use, as in a dog on a leash, you invite, I think, more irresponsibility. And let's be frank, as dog owners, we know that it's the small minority of irresponsible, bad dog owner. Oh, my dog's friendly. Well, why do you think I have my dog on a really short leash? I don't want, because I'm trying to send a signal. Don't just let your dog run up to my dog. And so, I think in that case, I think it is clearer to be more definitive and say no dogs rather than on leash is essentially allowing, I think, for more bad behaviour. Nonetheless, I was in a no dog section of the Esplanade in front of the surf club just last week or weekend, and literally an off-lead dog came up to us, and my partner was really anxious. We had our son with us. So the other thing that was patently clear from the engagement report was that people actually want to see whatever rules we have in place better regulated. And I hope that in endorsing this today, we can further look at ways to have more rangers actually enforcing the rules that we adopt today. So, because let's be honest, as I said, back to that peanut butter sandwich test, you might like dogs and that's fine, but people who don't like dogs or even scared of dogs for legitimate reasons from episodes they've had in their past, etc., they deserve the right to have areas of the beach that are dog-free and are enforced in a way. As a dog lover myself, I totally appreciate that doesn't mean that everyone loves dogs or should have to love dogs or doesn't have legitimate fears, often from being attacked or the like. So, bit of a struggle for me to get across the line because I do, as I said, I think it is a very large area that we are saying dogs prohibited. Got there in the end though. Just thought I'd elaborate on the reasons why I could get there, because I think some people will think this is a little bit mad, but nonetheless, that's my reasons.
Councillor O'Keefe.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, I will take the opportunity to speak for this motion. I don't have any peanut butter analogies that I can throw to, but I just want to acknowledge the work of our community development team in running a very thorough process. This wasn't about a cats versus dog issue. There's a lot of process involved in this. There was a sizable level of community engagement in the process, and I want to thank the community development team and our reg services team for working very closely together to come to what I believe is the right outcome. So thank you very much.
Councillor Farage.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Just to echo the sentiments of Councillor O'Keefe, we are a very dog-friendly community. We have a very high percentage of people that live on the Fraser Coast that own dogs, and so the level of effort that has gone in to this engagement, to this report, and to ensuring the safety and happiness of people that use our foreshore is impeccable, and I commend the staff from all the departments involved on that, and just to commend them on the level of engagement. We had over 2,000 people that responded to this. It was very accessible. You could walk along the esplanade and just quickly scan a QR code, and I've had a lot of positive feedback from that. People think and feel that they have been listened to, which is really important when we do community engagement, and I think the outcome that we have now is a very good balance where people that may be allergic or fear dogs or have small children that they want to let just play can do that, and people that would like to exercise and walk their dogs can also do that. And so I will definitely be supporting this motion. Thank you.
Councillor Byrne.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I too struggled with the very large prohibited area, but recognise the fact that the infrastructure points that the prohibited area will be between makes it so much easier for people to know it's a no-go zone from here. Not rejecting the fact that that's also a really good area. There's lots of paths in that area. You can actually walk around that area quite easily. Not from the fear point of view is what got me over the line, but the fact that now people can go to the beach and they don't have to worry about irresponsible dog owners not picking up after dogs and things like that as well. So I too am a dog owner, but I did struggle with the size of the prohibited area, but I do recognise the fact that our officers will now be able to clearly define those areas too, so there is no shade grey basically. And exactly what everybody's saying, irresponsible dog owners, although the minority, are a problem. So I do believe that this is the most concise way for everybody to enjoy our beaches. So thank you.
Thank you. And I've got a quick question for the CEO about clause 2 of the motion. We're delegating power to you to initiate the local law. Obviously, when we pass this motion, it doesn't take immediate effect. Can you walk us through what time period, and what further steps will be taken in terms of affecting this change in the local law?
Thank you for your question, Mr Mayor. So it would be a required amendment to the local law, and there's a process that needs to be followed to do that. And it's a 6-step process. So notwithstanding the council's indicated its position today, we need to go through that formal legislative process for amending the local law. That will give us time to be able to undertake the planning for enforcement, develop education, and to prepare signage so that when the local law is amended, we're ready to implement. That could take up to 6 months or longer because the process is quite involved. Firstly, we'll need to come back to council with the resolution proposing the change. Then we'll need to undertake a state interest check. There'll need to be further public consultation about the law itself, a review of the submissions that have been received, the council's adoption, and then gazettal and commencement. So local laws in Queensland take a long time to put in place, and so this may take 6 months before we actually be able to put those local laws in place and enforce them. Hopefully the state government's red tape reduction task force will propose some changes to the local law adoption and amendment process.
Councillor Truscott?
Yes, I mean, I agree with what everyone said here, parts of it. One thing by the way, most of these rules most rules in the world are created or started by people that are irresponsible, unfortunately. But I would request that even the signage be clear, even like putting a map like you've got on page 509, I think it is excellent because you can see it. The biggest problem I've ever had, and I come down here a lot, privately that is, as well as work, I never know what's what. I never know where's dog off or dog whatever. So something like that, even though it doesn't mention the name of the streets at the end of the red section, that would be a really good idea so you know what you're doing, so blind Freddie can understand it rather than as well as me. That'd be really good. But yes, not having dogs is a problem, and I have a dog too. In fact, I've had a lot of dogs in my life, and the one I've got now is the best dog I've ever had, even though he's as ugly as sin. But he is an unbelievable dog. So having no dogs in areas is extremely good because people, I can't say it's rude, but don't pick up stuff. And for kids digging in the sand, it's not good. Love it. Thank you.
Councillor Chapman?
Mr Mayor, I'd like to put up an alternative motion. And the alternative motion is the motion that we've already got, but removing the prohibited area on page, where it's got that short prohibited area on page 505, to extend that to be yellow so it's dog on leash, that area in front of Torquay.
Okay, so we'll have to get wording of that, so we got it properly down in the minutes, the alternate motion? Yeah, he's foreshadowing a motion, yeah.
And I'd like to actually speak against.
Yeah, can we just before you proceed, can we just get a foreshadowed motion in text form?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So the officers adopt the recommended changes indicated in table 3 of the report, subject to the following changes. And let me just get to table 3, and just bear with me because I'm doing this on the fly. We're talking about the prohibited area, so amending the prohibited area location from...
So there'll be no prohibited area?
There'll be no prohibited,
Yes.
to remove prohibited area altogether and have that as a dog.
Referral to Marina? Or I thought you're only talking to Scarness, so adopting table 3 subject to the following changes: the removal of item A, expand prohibited area from Scarness Jetty to Robert Street.
Can I just ask if it perhaps would reflect your intentions more that all areas marked prohibited be changed to on leash?
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
Okay, so you're adopting table 3 with the following changes: that prohibited areas as detailed in item 2 of table 3 be removed.
And marked. on,
Sorry?
and marked.
And marked on leash, yeah.
Marked as on leash, yeah.
So that's the referral to Marina and, yep.
Yep.
Okay, Dustin, we got that? Yep. And you want to speak against, yep?
Mr Mayor, I've owned dogs all my life, and I've had some very well controlled dogs. I look at this. I find this hard to have an area where, say, there's a lot of people that live in these areas that have got a lot of dogs, and it was mentioned before that a lot of people in this area have got a lot of dogs. But if you lived in Shelley Beach and you wanted to walk to Scarness, you'd have to walk along the beach, and then you'd have to walk up onto the cycle path, walk along there, and then go back down onto the beach and go along to be legal. I think that there's a big thing around this room is let everything be exclusive. Why have rules when we're going to have to police it? Why can't people, when they're walking their dog on a lead is a controlled method of controlling your dog. Why can't you walk along the beach all the way, and some of these areas that we're actually making prohibited out the front are businesses that encourage dogs. There's restaurant on the beach that you go there on a weekend, and sometimes there could be over a dozen dogs with people sitting there that have got the beautiful beach in front of them, but that beach is prohibited. There's so many more elderly people that travel around the regions, and they've got their pets with them. And they're using, a lot of people, elderly people in this region, are actually using animals for companion animals. The thing that I look at is you can walk up the footpath with your dog on a lead, wherever you would like to go within the Fraser Coast, even through the streets of Maryborough. You can walk your dog on a lead through the streets of Maryborough and pass another dog there, but we've got a big wide open beach, and we're saying that we cannot cannot have dogs on that area even if they're on a leash. I think, Mr Mayor, we're bringing in rules that's going to cost us more money to police. I know there's been a lot of money gone into public consultation and everything like that, but I really think that we've got to look at it as a dog owner. And can I say that a lot of bad dogs is the problem. The other biggest problem is on the other end of the lead. I really think that owners, we should be thinking about educating more owners on how to be responsible for dogs. We see a lot of dog attacks and that across the region. And I saw it a couple of weeks ago in Bunnings. A bloke walks into Bunnings. He had a pig dog on a lead, and this lady's little dog started yapping at it. The pig dog went to have a go at the little yapper, and he thought it was funny that his pig dog was aggressive against this little dog. And to me, I look at that and I think to myself, the education needs to be with the owners. And I feel that making it prohibited, you're putting in a rule there that some people can't have the opportunity to walk and enjoy our beach. Our beach is one of the most important things in this region, and I think, why should we put up barriers?
So just for clarity, if we can get the portion of the motion on the thing. So item 2, abstain. How do we put it, like, because I assume you're saying it should be on leash? The areas that are
Yes.
prohibited should become on leash,
That's right.
not, for example, off leash. I'm not sure if that, how does that work into what you're?
Oh, okay, so probably, Mr Mayor, would be add item 4, which includes on leash only, would be the description. The location would be those locations identified in 2A and B.
Yeah, it's to remove the prohibited area and change it to dog on leash.
Yeah, so the second part B would be that Scarness Jetty to Robert Street and Reef World to Marina be designated on leash areas.
Yeah. So there's virtually no prohibited area, but if you want to go on the beach,
Get that?
we'll have a lead on your dog.
Do you want me to repeat that? So part B would read that Scarness Jetty to Robert Street, that Scarness Jetty to Robert Street, and Reef World to the Marina be designated on leash areas. On leash only areas.
So that's the foreshadowed motion, which we'll deal with if the current motion is lost. Is there any further speakers speaking to the current motion? Councillor O'Keefe?
Did Councillor Chapman speak against the motion? Because if he did,
Yes.
I'd like a right
Yes.
of reply.
Yeah. Well, would you want to exercise that at the end, as a final speaker, or do you want to, you haven't already spoken, have you? Yeah, you're moving this.
So I spoke for it.
Yeah, so you'll get your right of reply at the very end, if you haven't already spoken, yeah. Is there a further speaker in favour? I'll speak in favour. This is a tricky issue about our beaches. They are obviously popular places. Dogs, one of our number one complaints are barking dogs. One of the most serious things we deal with are dog attacks on people. Another serious thing we deal with is dog attacks on other dogs. Another serious thing we deal with is dog attacks on wildlife. I love dogs. Yesterday I was with the dogs at Maryborough Animal Refuge. Dogs have played a very important part of my life, but I also think that we should have a little area on the beach where dogs aren't allowed, where people can go, people who may have been attacked by a dog, people whose children may be extremely anxious by a dog who's the most friendly dog in the world. There are children who are very, very anxious and very, very scared of dogs. It could be a very peaceful, elderly, blind, toothless, deaf dog on a lead, on a chain lead, that's never going to get at them. But these children might be extremely anxious, nervous, scared, terrified of dogs. And I think that is something that we should listen to and take into account. This map shows a lot of areas. We are significantly increasing the areas that are off-leash, particularly in the Ureg and the groin to groin, extending the well past the pier now. I think this is a good mix, what's being proposed. Yeah. Are there any further speakers? Any further speakers against the current motion? Further speakers in favour of the motion? Councillor O'Keefe, you have a right of reply.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As I said before, the proposed changes to dog regulations in Hervey Bay will better clarify on and off-leash areas. It'll lead to better education outcomes in terms of encouraging responsible pet ownership, and it will also allow for better enforcement of our local laws by way of this clarification. So again, I support the recommendation in the officer's report.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. If this motion is lost, then we'll go to the foreshadowed motion. All in favour? All opposed? That's carried 10-1. So the foreshadowed motion lapses. The next item is 11.3.3, the tender exception for e-mobility devices from page 590. Is there a mover for this? Councillor O'Keefe, is there a seconder? I'm happy to second it. Do you wish to speak to this?
Yes, I do, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to recognise the importance of e-scooters and e-transport generally. They make up a critical part of the transport mix, with students, workers, visitors, retirees, and recreational users of scooters using personal mobility devices to get from A to B, and subject to battery powers, also C and D. It makes sense for us to seek approval for a tender extension due to the parliamentary inquiry being conducted by the Christopher government.
Thank you. Is there any speakers against?
Question?
Yep.
Yeah, thank you through the chair, to the Acting Director Strategy Community Development, I believe. Does entering this contract include provisions to ensure that the contractor will implement any new state government recommendations, or is it understood that they will just adhere to the regulations as written?
Thank you, Councillor Drovers, and through the chair. E-scooter or e-bike companies must amend their processes when required by the state government. This includes ensuring compliance with registration, insurance and safety standards. These companies must adapt their operations to meet the legal requirements set down by state government to ensure the safe use of e-scooters and bikes in public places. So any amendment to legislation they would have to adhere to.
And they will do that in a timely manner?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Chapman?
Mr Mayor, I'll quickly like to support this motion that's on the books here today. These e-scooters, they're a controlled environment that they work in. They can actually control them. Our biggest problem is private scooters, and I think the private scooters are giving a bad reflection on the controlled systems that we've got. And the more and more we have of these where people can get on and use a controlled system, the safer that our community are going to be and the people that are riding them. So I think that if we stop this, it could encourage more private scooters into the system. People are hacking their private scooters and making them go faster and everything like that. And that's where we're seeing deaths and bad injuries in our hospital systems. Thank you.
I support the recommendation of deferring, allowing this contract to extend through an exemption until after the parliamentary process. That parliamentary should be next March, and then from April onwards, the government and the parliament can enact relevant reforming legislation. When the Deputy Mayor and I went to Sandy Strait State School a week or two ago, and they presented issues of importance to them, a lot of the students spoke about e-scooters and about issues that the government have raised in terms of regulation. So I think, there will be changes, and we need to allow this contract to be extended until that inquiry reports back and that the government has a chance to make those reforms. Are there any further speakers or questions? I'll put the motion. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Maryborough Airport, 11.3.4, pages 597. Councillor Truscott.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. If I can move the alternate motion listed in the run sheet, which is that Council request the Chief Executive Officer to provide a further report outlining a range of options for the future of the Maryborough Airport land, including the continued operation of the site as an airport with a focus on maximising economic and community benefits.
Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Cosgrove. Do you wish to speak to this?
Yeah, just briefly, just to say that this ultimately is the same outcome as the original officer's recommendation. It just highlights the fact that, more for the optics of it really, to be honest, for the public if they are looking at this, to see that when we are looking at options for the Maryborough Airport, we are exploring all options, which includes what can happen for the airport site to be used as an airport still. So we're not rushing to any conclusions. This is about starting a conversation and seeing what, if anything, can happen with this land.
I think you worked at the airport last time there was commercial flights.
I did, yes.
Many years ago.
Many years ago.
Before even Rex, I think.
Yep.
Yeah.
Back in the corners.
Yeah, I remember those flights that would take off from Harvey Bay and land in Maryborough.
7 minutes.
Yeah. Councillor Chapman?
Mr Mayor, I support that, or you got a second? Yeah, I'd like to support that motion that Councillor Truscott's put up. I remember the Maryborough Airport going back when my dad came home from Brisbane Hospital in Very Crook Way after a major operation, and Mum and kids went out to the airport to pick him up at the old terminal, and when he got off the plane, he had to get his little square bag, his little port to carry off, and that was the day I met Lynn Powell. Lynn Powell went and got Dad's bag and carried his bag and over to the gate. And so I've got good memories of the Maryborough Airport, but it'd be good to just look at seeing it as we're changing what things that we can do, and if there is any interest in it, or where we move forward. So I do commend Councillor Truscott for putting this motion up.
Any further speakers or questions? With the motion, all in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 11.3.5, the Mary to Bay Rail Trail Strategy Document, pages 694 to 706. Is there a mover? Councillor Truscott?
Mr Mayor, thank you. If I may move again an alternate motion that I've got for this one. Would you like me to read it or?
Sure, yeah, give us a different one.
Sure. So it still primarily contains the same details as the first one, but adds extra. So the council firstly endorsed the Merida Bay Rail Trail implementation of undeveloped sections strategy document as a guiding document for development of future sections of the Merida Bay Rail Trail. Secondly, resolved to terminate the Merida Bay Rail Trail Advisory Committee after its scheduled September 2025 meeting. Thirdly, resolved to delegate authority to the Chief Executive Officer to establish a Merida Bay Rail Trail stakeholder reference group that meets at least every 6 months or sooner as required to consider progress on the development of the Merida Bay Rail Trail and to collaboratively identify and prioritise future works and initiatives for the consideration of Council. Fourthly, thank the members of the Advisory Committee and request their ongoing contribution via the Merida Bay Rail Trail Stakeholder Reference Group.
Is there a seconder for that? Councillor O'Keefe? Do you wish to speak to this?
Sure. I'll read the reason that we've got here primarily for anyone listening online. So the Merida Bay Rail Trail Advisory Committee has played an important role in shaping the direction of the rail trail project, particularly through the development of a strategy that identified undeveloped sections of the trail, established priorities and considered key opportunities and constraints. This was a significant and necessary step during the early phase of the project. However, this body of work has now been completed and the project is transitioning from strategic planning phase into an operational phase focused on delivery and outcomes. In this new context, the formal structure of an advisory committee under the Local Government Act is no longer the most effective or efficient means of stakeholder engagement. Advisory committees are highly regulated with strict terms of reference, limited membership and processes that add unnecessary layers of administration. These requirements can restrict rather than enhance collaboration and responsiveness, which is essential as the project enters its operational stage. A stakeholder reference group offers a more appropriate and flexible model for ongoing engagement. Its informality allows for open and practical dialogue, free from the constraints of unnecessary bureaucracy. It reduces administrative burden while at the same time enabling greater stakeholder representation. Importantly, it provides the flexibility for stakeholders, including councillors, to participate in discussions as relevant, opting in or out depending on the matter or topic under consideration. This ensures that the right people are at the table when needed without being bound by rigid committee rules. Disbanding the Merida Bay Rail Trail Advisory Committee and replacing it with a stakeholder reference group represents a natural evolution of governance for this project. It will enable Council to continue drawing on the knowledge, expertise and enthusiasm of stakeholders in a way that is more responsive, inclusive and efficient, while ensuring that the focus remains firmly on the successful delivery and ongoing management of the rail trail. And I'd just like to take the opportunity to thank Tracy, who's in the room as well, for her many years of dedicated effort to this project as well. So thank you and your team.
Thank you. Are there any speakers against? I'll speak against and I'll foreshadow a motion, an alternate motion. Keeping section 1, endorse the Merida Bay Rail Trail implementation of undeveloped sections strategy document as a guiding document for development for future sections of the Merida Bay Rail Trail. And 2, together with the Merida Bay Rail Trail Advisory Committee, conduct a review into the operational protocols, performance, outcomes, and possible improvements of the Merida Bay Rail Trail Advisory Committee as required under Section 10 of the Merida Bay Rail Trail Advisory Committee Terms of Reference. I only just thought of it. I haven't written it. Do you want to read it?
Oh, sorry, Mr Mayor, so.
No, but it's conduct a review
Yeah,
as
so,
for that.
thank you, Mr Mayor. Let me just go to the,
Keep the recording.
just 1 second. So, so copy and paste the officer's recommendation, delete, item 3
And 2.
and item 2, and replace item 2 that the council, in partnership with, item 2 should be that the Merritt Bay Rail Trail Advisory Committee review the operational protocols, performance outcomes and possible improvements of the committee. That's what it needs to say.
As required by section 10.
As required by section 10 of the Terms of Reference 2024 to the Merritt Bay Rail Trail Advisory Committee.
Thank you. In speaking against the original motion and foreshadowing that motion, I want to express what I believe is the council's wholehearted support for the trail itself. This is just a disagreement about how to proceed. I know that today I received in the Post Council, which goes to every single council in Australia. And this month, every single month, they focus on a different council. This month, this magazine that goes right across Australia is about the Fraser Coast. And when we were, and I asked the CEO who answered these questions, and he believes it's our communications team, when we were asked, what is an exciting community program or initiative council has coming up in the future or already underway, we responded, council is working with the Queensland Government and the Fraser Coast Bicycle User Group to continue developing the Merritt Bay Rail Trail. The aim is to repurpose the disused rail corridor between the Maryborough and Harvey Bay as both a tourism attraction and a local recreational route, increasing connectivity for cyclists, pedestrians and horse riders. Rail trails across Australia are growing in popularity, particularly with cyclists. It can be a tourism draw card that could inject millions into the local economy, while also benefiting locals who want to explore the great outdoors by walking or riding along the trail. Significant work has been done in recent years to improve and expand the trail, and more is planned in the future with the ultimate aim of connecting the heritage city of Maryborough and the seaside city of Harvey Bay. Before we continue, can I just ask the CEO or the director, has the committee been consulted about this report and the proposal to terminate their memberships?
Thank you for the question through the chair. No, at this stage, the committee has not been consulted on those recommended changes.
My proposal is that we do consult with them. Obviously, that is the foreshadowed motion, that we consult with the committee to discuss and review the operational protocols, performance, outcomes, and possible improvements. This is what is required in the terms of reference. This is what they signed up for, to review it. This is what we haven't done, and it is there to be reviewed every 2 years, and we have not done that as yet. The terms of reference, again, this is what we used when we appointed these members. Some less than a year ago. People have joined this less than a year ago, and they will not find out until today's meeting that they have been dismissed without consulting with them, without warning them, without advising them. I don't believe that is the way we should be approaching dedicated volunteers and community members. The terms of reference state that the purpose of the Merritt Bay Rail Trail Advisory Committee is to provide a forum for community and user groups to make recommendations to Fraser Coast Regional Council on the development and management of the Merritt Bay Rail Trail. So when we say that it has now completed the strategic operation and now has completed its business, that is not correct. And I'll go on to speak about the objectives in Clause 3 of the Terms of Reference. The objectives of the Merritt Bay Rail Trail Advisory Committee is to share ideas, provide recommendations to Council, and to identify opportunities relating to the development and management of the Merritt Bay Rail Trail. This includes, but is not necessarily limited to, the following areas: A, future developments and construction works; B, operations and maintenance; C, marketing, communication and promotion; D, identification of opportunities for recognition of heritage and history; E, identification of funding and grant opportunities; and F, identification of opportunities for events. Now, that's not in the report. Those terms of reference, I had to ask for those terms of reference. The report and the recommendation sort of suggests, and what we've heard earlier, suggests that because we have now adopting this plan going forwards, that the work of the committee is done, and that is completely untrue. That ignores basically every single one of the objectives, and it ignores the purpose of the terms of reference in black and white. And beyond that, it ignores the compact we have formed with these volunteer community members, that we would work with them to, as of today, advise them that their position, that they are no longer required, I feel, is not reflective of how we should be behaving and approaching community members. If needed, I'm happy to return as chairperson of this committee. I've said that. I'm happy to go back on it. I'm happy to be as involved as required. But I believe that it should continue, that it should be reviewed as is required under the terms of reference, and that if we are to be dismissing people from their voluntary positions, which they applied for, many of them very, very recently, we should have decency to advise them of that beforehand, and they have not been so advised, and to consult with them. Are there any further speakers in favour? Councillor Byrne?
I actually have a question, so I might reserve that if you have another speaker.
Yep. Councillor O'Keefe?
Thank you,
in favour?
Mr Mayor. Thank you, Mr Mayor. Today, I'm, as Chair of the Rail Trail Committee, I'm very pleased to advance the strategy development that the advisory group have developed to progress to an implementation plan. The purpose of the group was never to hold continuous meetings. There was always an outcome. It was outcome driven, and I want to thank all of the members of the advisory group for all of their hard work over the last few years in putting together a strategic document that we can now move forward on. And if you'll just give me a moment.
Would you like a copy of the terms of reference, which actually talks about the purpose?
Do we
Mr. Mayor.
have the motion up? Yeah, please, sorry, it's just
Yeah,
I
yeah.
need to see that.
The foreshadowed motion.
Yes, foreshadow motion, please, yeah.
Mr Mayor, I don't want to get into any arguments over terms of reference, and I've already said that the purpose of the committee should not be to continually be at committee. The purpose of the committee is to achieve an outcome, and I'd like to speak to some of those outcomes that we have been able to see on ground. By giving a little bit of background, the Mary to Bay Rail Trail Advisory Committee was formed by Council in 2022 for the purpose of providing a forum for community and user groups to make recommendations to Council on the development and management of the Mary to Bay Rail Trail project. Membership of the Advisory Committee comprised Council, Department of Transport and Main Roads, Fraser Coast Tourism and Events, Fraser Coast Bicycle User Group, and several other based members. Since the formation of the Advisory Committee, there has been significant progress in opening further sections of the trail, enhancement of existing sections, and planning and identification of opportunities and constraints for the remaining undeveloped sections. Listed below are examples of some of the achievements. Improved trail signage, including physical signage and footpath stenciling, development of a dedicated Mary to Bay rail trail page within the Fraser Coast website, completion and opening of trail between Takura and Churchill Mines Road by Fraser Coast Bicycle Users Group with the assistance of funding from the Department of Transport, Main Roads and Council. Completion and opening of trail section between Walker Street and Boundary Road on the Maryborough end by Council with funding provided through the Queensland Government's Works for Queensland funding program. The implementation of interim solutions for crossing of Stockyard Creek and Black Swamp Creek with the assistance of funding from Department of Transport and Main Roads. Progression of identification of crossing design solution for Maryborough Harvey Bay Road and Pialba Torban Lee Road by Department of Transport and Main Roads. The crossing designs are now progressing through to detailed design. Progression of tenure resolution activities relative to the underdeveloped sections between Churchill Mines Road, Aldershot and Aldershot Quarry Road, Maryborough West, noting that these tenure resolution activities are ongoing at the time of this report. Mr Mayor, I wholeheartedly endorse the Mary to Bay Rail Trail implementation plan for the underdeveloped sections outlined in the strategic document as a guiding document for the development of future sections of the Mary to Bay Rail Trail. And I also accept the amendment made by Councillor Truscott seeking to advise the members of the advisory group of multiple touch points that they have access to, and that we will be seeking their feedback when need and time requires. So I support the amendment put by Paul Truscott. I support the officer's recommendations, and I'm very pleased that we have reached this point where we have a strategic document that we can now follow, and we can work towards further implementation of the Mary to Bay Rail Trail.
Are there any further speakers or questions? Councillor Cosgrove.
Thank you, Mr Chair. I'll be speaking in favour of the motion. Noting that, shortly, whenever we appointed people onto the advisory committees, I actually had to get the terms of reference changed to get a spot on that committee because both the Mayor and at the time Deputy Mayor were so keen to be on it. I thought from a seniority point of view, I probably had to ask for that amendment to be the third man in, essentially. But I left that committee, and that was because I didn't feel like my time was producing results and making an impact. And I want to note that I'm a bit player in the work, and I note that of the work that's been going into the Mary to Bay Rail Trail. I really truly believe in the project, and I think that one of the biggest challenges we have at both the federal government level, the state government level, and even within this chamber, is that the rail trail is seen as a nice to have, and it's not seen as a key driver for economic opportunity in this region. And that is my belief. In fact, I had it on my election materials. I had 5 key priority and interest areas, and completion of the rail trail was one of them, because such is my belief in this project. You look at the massive announcement of Council's major sponsorship of the Harvey Bay Half Marathon recently, and that's going to be a huge economic win for this community. It is a massive, massive outcome. Think about having a full-length trail marathon starting in Maryborough and ending at the Urangan Pier. You'll literally get thousands, if not tens of thousands, of people coming to this region, spending money. I just really think we're undersold on what an opportunity driving this through to completion is. But I know that there's so much good work that's going into it, being driven particularly by Tracy Jenrich, who's in the room, who I think is getting tied up in cumbersome busy work running this committee, rather than working on kicking the goals that she is kicking on the work that actually matters. You've got Tracy, you've got Craig England from DTMR. They're doing amazing things. And I note amazing things done by the Fraser Coast Bugs group, whose volunteers have done a hell of a lot of work getting the non-bitumised section of the trail further and further, with grants from council at times for crossings and the like. There are amazing things happening, but we need to make sure that we're not focused on optics or cumbersome busy work, but doing things that actually matter to get this project through to completion. I really think it's undersold in the minds of politicians at all levels. We have the really difficult situation of probably electorally being too safe in terms of, we're not getting that pork barrelling money for the marginal seats, and also it sits between electorates, and that's an issue too. Which state member do we go to go, hey, let's drive this? We need David Lee and John Baronis to get together and have a moment where they go, yes, this is a huge opportunity for the Fraser Coast at large. And when we're in budget discussions too, we need to think carefully about how we can further support with real dollars to keep driving this project home. So I think it's great that we are endorsing an implementation of undeveloped section strategy. It's a good document. There's great work happening, and we need to ensure that the people who we have on this project are spending their time on delivering real outcomes and not busy work of the Secretariat of a committee which, has done a lot of work to this point, but we need to move to the next phase.
Any further speakers or questions? Councillor Chapman?
So I'm thinking.
I just got a question to ask here. I'm a little bit confused. We've got a rail trail moving forward in a direction. The members haven't been told that they're looking at ceasing this committee, and we all want to get behind it. How does this really work? Like, where are we going to? I feel we're making a decision that it's. I was around when we went out to the meeting, Mr. Mayor, when they've talked about forming this committee, and I saw in the enthusiasm that was there. And I've been watching them, I've been following them on Facebook, and I've been watching the enthusiasm that their working bees have been having and everything like that. But this seems to be not the work that's been performed. This is about it goes back to the committee. That's
Creating a reference group is the other
yeah.
bit.
So what we're virtually doing here today is shutting the committee with this motion with Councillor Truscott, and putting it back into the hands of the CEO.
No, I mean, somebody who's moving could speak to it, but they're setting up a different group. But effectively, the members of the committee would get notice somehow, hopefully polite and courteous, saying they've been dismissed, and presumably inviting them to join the new group.
Yes.
Would you like me to answer that question, Mr. Chair?
Or I can save it for the right reply if you want, or do you want me to answer that? Or?
That's just a question I've got. It's just I'm a little bit confused of where we sort of move forward.
So I can respond to that, Mr. Mayor. So the Mayor's quite right that the advisory committee itself, if the motion is passed, will be terminated and be replaced with the stakeholder reference group that won't have the rigid bounds of those terms of reference. The advisory, as per the recommendation, the members of the advisory committee would be thanked for their service of the advisory committee, and they'd be requested to be part of the stakeholder reference group.
So it's not as strict.
It's point 4 of the motion.
Councillor Keith?
Oh, could I just add to that also, just to let Councillor Chapman know that I will be advising the advisory committee members tomorrow, so less than 24 hours from now. Of our request to seek continued feedback and thanking them for all of the work that they've done and encouraging them to keep working to get to the implementation plan and to get it done.
Okay, well, perhaps I could ask you a question then. Why not before? Why not advise them beforehand that this motion was being moved?
That's a bit of an odd question. I think as a group...
Well, you said you'll contact them tomorrow. Why not advise them?
I think it would be important as a collective, as the body overseeing and managing the committee, that we have some sort of idea of what the collective position is before we float that idea. So I'm not sure...
No, you come here as the chairperson of the group, advocating that the group be dismissed, but you haven't spoken to other members of the group.
I'm not going to answer that question, Mr. Mayor. It's just, it's backward and forward, like, I mean, it really, I just don't understand the premise of your question.
I don't know if I can make it any simpler, and I know you don't want to answer it. It's simply, why as chairperson did you not advise the members that you were advocating that the position be terminated?
I will advise the advisory committee, so I will do that on behalf of the group tomorrow, of what has happened today. And so if any of you guys want to come along and thank the members, you're quite welcome to.
Councillor Brown?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think most of my concerns have been addressed. However, my number one concern would be moving forward, would we be assuming that the current advisory committee members, I think this is more for Councillor Truscott, would we be assuming that they will be on the stakeholder committee? That would be the assumption, so they'll still be involved in decision making moving forward. So that would not involve a terms of reference at all, just a strategy implementation.
I believe so, yeah.
believe so, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
And that's the primary driver behind your motion, is to actually move forward implementing the strategy that's already been put in place by the current committee.
Yes, and to echo the words of Councillor Cosgrove about to basically let Tracy and her team just do the work rather than do more work to prepare to talk about doing the work.
And to the Mayor, which is gone, your motion's gone. Can we just leave it up there, please? It's a little bit, I need the visual cue. I don't know if anyone else does, that's all. So with regards to your motion, Mr. Mayor, the foreshadow motion, you would see yourself continuing on as chairman perhaps?
I'd have to rejoin the committee, I'm not on the committee.
You have to rejoin the committee and continue on as it is.
No, so section 10 in terms of reference, which is the agreement we have with these volunteer community members, says that within every 2 years, we will conduct this review with them to make sure that the committee is performing as best as it can to meet the terms of reference and to deliver on the project. Yeah, Councillor Chapman?
Mr Mayor, I'd ask a question here. Is the committee, these group from the rail trail come to council to set up the committee? So I ask the question through the chair, have they spoken about what's happening here? It's in a committee meeting, or is it this is just someone's idea of shutting it down and setting up a new committee without them really knowing?
Yeah, thank you, councillor Chapman. I guess the concerns or the reason that we've put the recommendation forward, as it has been outlined several times in this meeting, is the administrative resource requirements to run these committee meetings every 2 months. They're quite significant. They're based on the standing orders, legislated by the state government, so they are quite prescriptive. And they are very detailed. So the work that gets undertaken by the officers is substantial in administering these meetings. So they're spending time administering committee meetings rather than working hard to implement the findings of the strategy. So
has this been spoken to them about?
No, as we mentioned before, no, it has not been advised to the committee.
That's a surprise.
Are you done, councillor Chapman? Yeah. Okay. I'm not really sure who to direct these questions at. It's a bit of a struggle, this one. I think, Mayor, you said that we adopted, or the previous council adopted the terms of reference in 2022, and we were supposed to have a review every 2 years.
The review under section 10 is that the committee and council will review the operational protocols, etc.
So
every 2 years.
If I was correct, then that review probably should have occurred sometime in 2024.
Well, I'm not sure when the committee was first appointed. Certainly they were set up in 2022.
2022,
might have been later in the year.
So, could you probably, to the director, help me understand why council didn't complete the review?
So, thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor, and through the chair. I understand that no formal review was undertaken in 2024, though I do understand that there were some recommendations put to council on changing the makeup slightly of that committee, which was a number of councillors on the committee, and the recommendation that a council member could be chair. So that minor change was enacted in 2024. However, there was not a formal review per clause 10 of the terms of reference, which is an oversight on our behalf.
And just a follow-up question, maybe to the CEO. Would we usually advise committees outside of this situation that we were looking to shut them down or progress them into a stakeholder group or whatever it is that we would like to do? Would we usually give notice or have that conversation in a meeting with the chair, bring it up?
I can't recollect the circumstances where we've closed committees before, but it would not be uncommon without reference to the committee, to terminate committees as part of the statutory meeting that's held after the election, where the councils decide what their committees are. I would say that the council's made decisions in the past at those statutory meetings to continue or discontinue committees and then subsequently advise the members.
Yeah, like we did with like the arts, culture and heritage became one committee, I suppose.
Yeah, and there were committees, I believe, that were, I can't speak with absolute certainty, but I believe that at least in the last two election cycles, there are committees that have been terminated without consultation of the members at the statutory meeting of council.
I may direct to the officer that can provide further information.
So just, thank you through the chair, just to, I'm just aware as part of the range and level of service review, there was a number of advisory committees that were ceased at that time. One included the Youth Advisory Committee, and the other one that I'm aware of was the Heritage Advisory Committee, standing on its own, but it was amalgamated ultimately with the arts and culture.
After a review that interviewed people and considered it,
Yeah, I'm not aware of any consultation with the Youth Advisory Committee prior to termination of that. But
I can answer that. As the previous chair, there was no consultation.
I think that,
Councillor Chapman?
Mr Mayor, I'd actually like to speak against this motion. I know where Councillor Truscott's coming from and I know what's trying to happen here. But I think that I would like to speak against it because I think that the committee should know exactly what's going on. When I went out to Charlotte Plains, I camped beside Desley O'Grady, who's the president of the Queensland Rail Trails, and she actually rode from Gladstone to Hervey Bay, and she was at the opening of the Hervey Bay Rail Trail, and she said the enthusiasm that the members have got in Hervey Bay is incredible, and when they opened up the bullion line up there, she said that the work that the workers are doing now, but I do not want to put a barricade between the council and the rail trail people for their commitment that they're doing for this asset that they're leaving for our community. As volunteers, I feel that every day that we work as a volunteer, we leave our community in a better place for someone else to enjoy. And I really think that this should probably stick to what your thoughts were, and let's go back to them and work it all out to say, okay, the administration, I'm sure they don't want to be spending money on administration. They'd rather that money be going back into dirt, gravel and bridges and things for their rail trail. And I really think that if you said to them that, okay, this is what we've got to do, and I'd rather see a motion come from them that's gone through their meeting to say, okay, we'd like to shut down this part of it and we'd like to start up this new section as council officers would prefer, because it would save money and it would help the administration, help run the rail trail. So I think we've got to have the opportunity that everyone's got to talk together and it's got to be driven from themselves. So I'll be voting against it, Mr Mayor.
Yes, I'll be voting for it because I've been on this committee and it's a brilliant committee, and as one of the councillors said, I can't remember which one it was, about the groups have done some incredible work, but it becomes a bit of a talk fest and going over the same thing over and over again, whereas we should just be doing the work and getting the job done. And anyway, anyone can come up with any ideas at any time and come and tell us what we should do, and through the advisory committee, and also advising the people before it happens is not necessary in my view, because they're all very sensible people and they'd agree with it anyway. So my reason for thank you.
Councillor Brennan?
Would Councillor Truscott be open to a friendly amendment to his point 2, which might read something along the lines of, a little wordsmithing might help, to notify members at the September 2025 meeting of the council's wishes to move from a committee to an advisory committee to allow for strategic implementation. It kind of says that in point 3. But I'm just wondering, rather than resolve to terminate, maybe that could be an intention to consult or inform. So to a transition period after the September time. It allows at least one meeting to have the discussion, that's all.
I hear what you're saying, I respect that. I don't feel it's necessary though. And from being on the committee and, yeah, the chair, I think, is agreeing with me, and I don't know if Tracy would feel that's necessary, but I don't. I appreciate what you're saying, but I think the fact that number 4 is there, I don't think anyone on that committee would, if they are invested in it, as we believe they are, would go, no, I'm not going to take part in the stakeholder reference group. So for them, I don't see it. I see them, they're in one bus at the moment, or on one bike on the rail trail, and they're jumping onto a different bike. Same trail, same
Okay, then I'll withdraw that friendly amendment.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's going to go, oh, you know what, get stuffed, I'm not going to join the stakeholder reference group and I'm going to withdraw any activity in the rail trail. I think they're all going to go, you know what, we want the outcome to be the rail trail to be complete, so if we can be involved in the stakeholder reference group, great outcome.
Okay, I'll withdraw that suggestion then.
Any further speakers or questions? Councillor Cosgrove.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can I ask a question of Councillor O'Keefe in his capacity as the chair? Councillor O'Keefe, I understand that the coming September meeting, there has been an agenda item listed which is actually from a member of the committee asking about a reduction in the frequency of the meetings. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct. Yeah. So there are actually only 2 agenda items for this meeting, and that's probably a fair representation of the amount of items that get listed on the agenda at the moment. As I said before, very pleased to be able to advance the strategic document. The advisory committee is very outcome driven. There are a number of members that sit around that table who are more interested in getting out there and getting their hands dirty and actually building than sitting around a table going over the previous monthly meetings minutes. And as I said, I'm very happy to convey the view of council as ultimate members of the advisory committee in less than 24 hours and seek further feedback from them as the process is ongoing.
Any further speakers or questions? Yeah,
I'll speak for this, Mr. Paul Truscott's motion. I think the advisory committee has done a wonderful job in this strategy and where it's got to date. From what I've heard since being a councillor, this group are informed and they're deeply involved members of the community in this advisory group, and they have a strong understanding of the steps that will follow on from this process, and I would imagine that they're looking forward to it. We have to, as council, recognise the work that the operations administration do for this work. It is time, it is money, and it's very involved and has been going on for a long time. So I think moving forward, this is really a positive step.
Any further speakers or questions? Another question?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have another question for the CEO. If the council didn't support this motion and supported the foreshadowed motion, went to the committee and said, do you agree with the approach in the current motion to disband the committee and move to a stakeholder reference group? If they vehemently said, no, we want the committee maintained as is, would council be bound by the view of those members to maintain the committee?
No, thank you for your question. No, they wouldn't be bound by the views of those members. Council can, it's an advisory committee established by council. Council can create advisory committees. Council can cease operations of advisory committees.
So it's solely within the remit of council being
to make the determination
to determine what committees we have.
That's exactly right.
I guess can I ask about that? If we were to follow the terms of reference and do a review and with the committee, one of the recommendations they could make would be that it would meet less than 6 times per year, that it could meet twice a year. And it could still be a advisory committee with less meetings.
That's right, Mr. Mayor.
The number of meetings is not a consideration of the very fact that it is an advisory committee. So if we went to them and asked them to do this, to come up with their own ideas about performance, outcomes, and possible improvements, that could then come back to us as a report on how we could work together with them to improve the committee.
That's right, Mr. Mayor.
And one of those could be, if they thought it was good, that we turn it into a stakeholder group.
That's correct, Mr. Mayor.
And do you think that that would possibly create better cohesion in the community and reflect better on us as an organization, working with groups like Fraser Coast Bugs, who have been instrumental in the success of this?
I think you're asking for a personal view.
Yes.
I don't have a problem with either of the resolutions. I can see the arguments from both sides of the fence. I believe that the committee would be of a view to reduce the bureaucracy, and I wouldn't see any major objection from the committee if we're saying because this isn't about reducing stakeholder engagement. This is definitely not about reducing stakeholder engagement. This is about tailoring that engagement and not having the restrictions that are placed on the advisory committees in terms of reference, in terms of membership, etc. So there are times when some members don't want to be there, but are there because simply they're a member of the advisory committee, and that goes for councillors and staff. There are times when they're not required to be there, but they still show up. I know the focus is on the fact that it's a termination of committee, but I see this as a morphing into a better way to manage the governance of the operations and to have greater level of flexibility.
Yeah. And exactly, that's what I'm talking about, the governance of the change.
Yeah.
If this committee and a stakeholder reference group is about us working with different community members, if this committee is about us bringing voices together, wouldn't making this significant change to it in that spirit better reflect on what you see as the values of our organisation?
So I would
the
expect
local government principles.
I would expect that at that meeting, which is tomorrow, that if this motion goes through, that a large focus will be on how do we want to ensure that we have better engagement, we have more meaningful engagement, and how would that stakeholder reference group work?
Any further speakers? Councillor Byrne?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll actually be talking in support of Councillor Truscott's motion. I really like the idea of actually getting some what would you say, some skin in the game, get some dirt on the ground for this organisation and get it moving forward. And I commend them for their work that they've done. In fact, I'm amazed by the work that this group of volunteers does. My only concern is for the sentiment moving forward, that their work is really, really appreciated, and I couldn't be more proud of what they've done and more supportive of what they've done. So moving forward, I'll be endorsing or supporting Councillor Truscott's motion, and I really look forward to actually getting this thing completed. So, and I think that's where everyone's on the same page. Although I have struggled with the disbanding basically of a group. I can see us moving forward with an advisory group, and I'm comfortable with that.
Any further speakers or questions? Councillor Truscott?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, to use the right to reply, I think you made a good point there, Councillor Byrne, about appreciating their efforts, and I think anyone that is listening to this conversation online or later online would realise that I don't think there's anyone around this table that doesn't appreciate the giant efforts from everyone that is literally hands on ground there or that has been in the committee, and we do thank them for their work. Same as I think there's no one at this table, I don't imagine, I'd be very surprised, that would actually want more red tape or continued red tape, more bureaucracy, more administration. So I think we want things, or should want things, to be easier to achieve. And so I think anything that can have less bureaucracy on a group to be able to actually get things done. And again, to thank Tracy and her team for what they do and if this passes, to allow them to just do the work. And to mention what I said before about, it's the same track, different bike. And I think so. We all want the same outcome, and hopefully this will help get them there.
I'll put the motion. This is the motion moved by Councillor Paul Truscott, seconded Councillor O'Keefe. All in favour? 9, all opposed, 2. That's carried 9-2. The next item is general business. Is there any general business? Late items, 16.1, the organisational performance report, pages 713 to 729. Is there a mover for this? Councillor Farage. Second it, it's not a controversial one. I'm happy to second, I'll second it.
Sorry.
Well, can I ask a question about, for the acting director for financial, on page 718, the cash balance. The $9 million shortfall from customers, can you just walk that through?
Thank you for the question, Mayor, and through the chair. So the receipts from customers, when we did our forecasting based on the budgeted numbers, we were forecasting an additional $9 million coming in from that space. That could be from outstanding balances carried forward from the month before, or could be based on revenue streams coming in. So the forecasting is quite difficult at times to understand how those cash flows will come in, but so that's the shortfall, is basically against what we forecast.
Yeah. And then I'm not sure if it's also your director of safety.
Yes.
Yeah. So page 721, the lost time injuries. Can you just explain to me a little about what's happening there? So the month actual RHS, how is that different to the month actual LTIFR?
So RHS of right-hand side.
Yeah, so I mean, they're both numbers of days, is that, or numbers of injuries? Oh, sorry, so the number on the right.
One's number.
Yes.
Okay, the number is on the right, so, okay.
Has that answered your question?
So the month is frequency, yeah.
So it's for other councils' benefit, the dotted line is the frequency, and the hard bar, I think that's green, relates to the right-hand side of the axis, which is the number.
So there's been 15 injuries that have caused lost time incident, and 25 lost days.
For July?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Are there any further questions on the report? I'll put the motion. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. The next two items include confidential reports. Is there anyone who wishes to move us into confidential to discuss them? This being the provision of Cisco support and maintenance exemption, and Hilliard Street contract for sale. Is there anyone who wants to move it? Suggest we move into confidential? If not,
Mr. Mayor, I have one question, but it's not a confidential one. Cisco, that's our security system that we've got over at IT, that's correct?
Yes. Thank you for the question through the chair. Cisco is, as I think what you're talking about, is when you connect to the network from outside of the council network, so from home or out at another site, you use the Cisco to provide that security to back into the council's services.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, that question was virtually just to clarification what it was, because in the old days we had Cisco and Puncho. So I just thought some people out there to know what Cisco really was. Thank you.
So is there a mover for that, for this? Yeah, Councillor Farage, is there a seconder? Councillor Wheeland? Any speakers or questions? This is item 15.1. I'll put the motion all in favour. Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. The next item is 16.2.1, contract for sale 7/19 Hilliard Street, Pyalva. Is there a mover for this? Councillor Paul Truscott, is there a seconder? Councillor Chapman, any speakers or questions? Councillor Truscott?
I just want to say thank you to Justine and the team for the extra work in getting this to the point. I know I was a bit of a stickler there, so I just really want to say thank you and share my appreciation of getting it to this point.
Any further speakers or questions? I'll put the motion all in favour. Any opposed? That's carried 10-1. That being all business
Yes, Mr.
on the
Mayor.
agenda, I'll close the meeting at 11:51. Thank you.
Daniel, we should be able to get out and see John out at Maryborough.
I sent him an email.
Yeah.
You guys can fix it.